And joining us now is Jonathan Metzl, who's a professor of sociology and psychiatry at Vanderbilt University and the director of its Center for Medicine, Health and Society. He's the author of several books and a prominent expert on gun violence and mental illness. And his latest book is Dying of Whiteness, How the Politics of Racial Resentment is Killing America's Heartland. Welcome to Background Briefing, Jonathan Metzl.
Thanks so much. Good to be back.
So it seems like there's not just dying of whiteness that's killing the homeland, particularly the red states. You're in Tennessee. But people are dying of ignorance, willful ignorance, and ignorance from politicians. The states with the lowest number of COVID-19 vaccination rates have 3 times higher infections in this last week than other states where people are fully vaccinated. This is, of course, in particular, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Florida, Missouri, Nevada. I don't know what the situation is in Tennessee, but Tennessee has just fired its top vaccine official for trying to get teenagers vaccinated. How did that happen?
Well, you call it willful ignorance, but I would call it I would call this volitional in a way. I mean, the information is out there about the COVID implications. It's certainly out there about the effects of the Delta variant, which is more lethal, more infectious, more dangerous overall. So it's not like that information's not out there. I mean, I think at this point, a number of people, not everyone, but a number of people are making a conscious decision to get infected with a more lethal strain of the coronavirus. And so that's a choice that they're making. And they're making that for political reasons. They're making that for ideological reasons. And so the question will be, in 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now, as unfortunately and predictably the death rates really start to go up, do people feel like that was a choice that was worth it, in a way? Now, we could talk a lot about the ideology that's behind it, and certainly some of it is about disinformation. What we see in Tennessee is people who are actually trying to get the word out and trying to inform people are, in particular arenas, in particular red states, being fired from their jobs. That's what happened in Tennessee. So there is an information issue out there, but it's also like, at this point in the game, there's no mystery what the COVID virus does to the human body. We know that, and it's just getting worse. And so really people are making this choice.
Well, but patients always listen to doctors and authority figures. At least that's how it's always been. So surely you can't let these politicians and the media, particularly people like Tucker Carlson and Fox News and those that spread disinformation, dangerous disinformation. I mean, some of these people may be willfully doing it and willfully ignorant and volitional, but I suspect a lot of them are being influenced.
Well, certainly they're being, I mean, nobody had heard of COVID-19 2 years ago. Nobody had heard of the vaccine a year ago. And so these were neutral topics for the most part that are shaped by different ideologies, but they tap onto existing beliefs. I mean, when I did my research about the Affordable Care Act, I saw people basically saying, I know I could be helped by the Affordable Care Act, but it's more important to me that I don't sign up for the evil government, even if it's trying to help me by giving me health insurance and things like that. Now, I could say on one hand, they're being influenced, and they certainly are. And I think there's a culpability right now. There's a real culpability for people who are telling people not to get vaccinated. But ultimately, what people are saying is they want individual choice, and they're ultimately, I mean, in a way, I'm tired of arguing with people. It's kind of like they're making their individual choice, so I guess it's a two-pronged thing. I certainly think that there should be more information. And to be honest, there's a ton of hypocrisy, right? All these people at Fox News, you can bet, are getting themselves vaccinated. So there's a lot of performativity here, but ultimately people are making a choice with the information that they have.
Well, Trump and Melania got vaccinated in secret. And so did Governor DeSantis down in Florida. So you're right about the hypocrisy, Jonathan Metzl. But it feels like we're in the Orwellian age here, particularly when it comes to red states and Republicans. Because according to Republican politicians, you don't have a right to vote, but you have a right to infect.
Well, again, that's why I said that you can make the choice for yourself, but that's not how COVID works, right? In other words, people can make individual choices. I mean, I guess it's akin to secondhand smoke. You can smoke or not, but when your secondhand smoke infects everybody around you, then all of a sudden it's not just about you anymore. And that's kind of how COVID works. People can decide not to get vaccinated, but the implications of that are spreading the virus to tons of other people. And so certainly there's a chain effect. I'll say empathically, the frustration here is that, I mean, we've been at this for like a year and a half. People are exhausted. It's hard. It's what we're doing is hard. It's almost hard to get your mind around. You think about the beginning of the pandemic, people thought, man, if this thing lasts 3 weeks, that would be something. And now we're a year and a half into it, and there's another wave coming. But on the other hand, the United States is in the best shape, right? I mean, we have access to the vaccine. Hardly any place else in the world has the kind of access we do. So I don't know. I mean, again, I study this and I'm feeling a lot of despair myself. And when people are being fired who are actually the people gathering the data and producing a kind of, it's not just willful ignorance, it's like strategic ignorance. It's almost hard to know what to do. I mean, I want people to be safe, but I'm feeling distraught about that myself at the moment.
And again, I'm speaking with Jonathan Metzl, who's Professor of Sociology and Psychiatry at Vanderbilt University and the Director of the Center for Medicine, Health and Society. He's the author of several books and a prominent expert on gun violence and mental illness. And his latest book is Dying of Whiteness, How the Politics of Racial Resentment is Killing America's Heartland. And what you just said, Jonathan, is echoed by Dr. Michelle Fiscus, who just got fired by the Republican legislature in Tennessee for trying to get teenagers immunized. She said, "The virus is apolitical. It doesn't care who you are or where you live or which president you preferred." And then she went on to say, "It's just been a very difficult thing for us to overcome." And you just echoed those thoughts too. So it's pretty dispiriting, and it also has a political effect. I mean, I think the Biden administration thought that they were really going to be heading into an era where Americans will be coming out into the malls and into the movie theaters and celebrating, and everybody would be feeling good. But this new strain, this Delta strain, is with us. And you said you're tired of trying to argue with these people, but don't they recognize how the death rate, which was so high at the beginning of the year, is now dropped dramatically? The cause and effect is obvious. The reason people aren't dying in droves now as they were 6 months ago is because of the vaccination, isn't it? I mean, it's so clear. Have you tried that argument?
Well, again, I mean, yeah, I'm not trying this. I'm trying this argument with like people who, I have a lot of friends who are Trump supporters who I'm trying these arguments on. And then I'm just kind of, I mean, ultimately, the only argument that I've found that works is you are an autonomous individual. You have access to the same information I do. You have the right to make a choice. I hope you make the right choice. Like, to me, that's, I mean, I'm waving the white flag in terms of trying to say I know something better than somebody else at this point. We all have access to this information. And I guess the only thing I tell people is I hope you make the right choice for your sake, because I care about you. I mean, that's really my strategy at this point. But I have to, I guess deep down, I feel like I have to respect them to make the choice. Now, that's on an individual level, that's my personal strategy. On a political level, I've studied guns for a long time. I know that there's much more gun death than we know in this country. The reason we don't know, even though we should, is because the NRA basically single-handedly destroyed the research infrastructure about studying gun safety for 3 or 4 decades. So nobody knows how to make people safe from guns. And so they're doing the same thing with COVID, not the NRA, but the GOP. They're basically destroying they're destroying people's right to like make an informed decision, basically, by destroying data gathering. That's what's happening in Tennessee. When you fire people who are public health experts, you're firing expertise, right? And you're replacing that with ideology. And so where I do think is a moral and criminal failure is to destroy the mechanisms through which we even get information about the spread of COVID in the first place, or the effect of the vaccines. But that's what seems to be happening in a lot of places. And for me, that's different from my individual life. That's a place where I personally feel like there's a tremendous amount of culpability, and it's going to get more urgent as more people die. I mean, we're going to see a lot of people die here.
Well, but as an expert on the subject, Jonathan Metzl, you may have waved a white flag with your friends, but that doesn't stop you from going after these politicians. I mean, the local newspaper there in Nashville, the Tennessean, is reporting that Dr. Fiscus, who just got fired for trying to get teenagers vaccinated, it's not just that the department is pulling back on its vaccination outreach efforts to children, but it's doing it for all diseases, not just coronavirus. So this is like the Republican legislature in Tennessee has been captured by the anti-vaxxers.
Yeah, no, it's urgent and it's catastrophic, and it's just friggin' medieval, honestly, is all I can say. I mean, we're inviting back not just coronavirus, which you can see that's what we're doing. We're inviting back coronavirus now, but we're also inviting back every other disease that we had found effective treatments for under the auspice of ideology, and this false racialized idea of kind of survival of the fittest and all these other kind of ideologies. And so again, like I think there needs to be accountability for these political decisions, for these politicians, for media disinformation, all of these, there's going to be a reckoning for these decisions again, as deaths really start to accelerate among people pretty soon here, unfortunately, but individually, again, it's different from having conversations. I think ultimately the conversations part is difficult, again, because you're having them in the context of all these other bigger structures.
Well, this, of course, has been going on for some time, and it's right across the country, this problem, because there was a review published in December by the Kaiser Health News and the Associated Press that found that 181 state and local public health leaders in 38 states have resigned, retired, or been fired since April the 1st of 2020. So, that's kind of, when you mentioned it's medieval, it's almost like witch burning, isn't it?
Well, and again, the sad part is, Twitter doesn't speak for most people. Politics right now doesn't speak for most people. But everybody's caught in the crossfire, right? I mean, there are a lot of people who don't support these politics, but they're going to catch COVID regardless because they can't find a vaccine in a place like Tennessee. So it's dispiriting. Again, people are making their minds and they're making the wrong choice.
Right. Well, so the only way for these people to be educated is when they and others around them get infected and start dying. Is that what it comes down to, Jonathan?
Well, I mean, again, I think it's important to note that they have an ideology. I mean, people have an ideology. Some people are profoundly health libertarian. They feel like they have the right to make every decision about their individual care. So that's one ideology. We can debate that. Other people are foot soldiers in a much, the narrative I write about in my book, where in a way control for the GOP depends on the kind of sacrifices that they're making right now. So there's a very racial component to kind of dying in the name of owning the libs or defeating the Democrats or defeating social justice. But there are different ideologies at play. It's important that we don't that we recognize what all of those are. But I guess that's important just because it's not just like getting sick is going to change people's mind. I mean, sometimes people get sick and it reinforces their ideology even more. All I can say is it's a hard time to be thinking about communal public health in that environment. But unfortunately, places that are doing it, like much of the rest of the world or, the East Coast United States, they're just having much better outcomes. Whereas in Tennessee, we're firing the experts.
And there are a couple of sentient politicians in Tennessee, Jim Cooper and I can't think of his name now.
John Ray Clements.
Yeah, the guy that brought a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken to hearing.
Oh yeah, yeah. There are a lot of people. Yeah, there. I mean, there are
What's
people
his
fighting
name
back,
again?
of course. I can't. I can't remember offhand, but there are people fighting back.
Right.
There are people fighting back. I mean, John Ray Clemens is another person some people should follow. He's phenomenal. So
Then you've got Marsha Blackburn, the senator, and other. She's totally reactionary, right?
yeah, no, and again, I think again, she represents an ideology. It's just we've assumed we've been on a progress narrative, and again, she speaks for a lot of people, a lot of people who feel like they're making the right decision. So again, I reject the term ignorance or things like that, because I think people are making decisions. They're not the decisions I would make. We're going to pay a very heavy price for these decisions, but it's a complicated time because you would think in a country like communal public health would be the one thing we could agree on, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
And they certainly did agree back when the polio vaccine came out. People lined up for that. So it's a very different world that we're in today, unfortunately. And I thank you for joining us, Jonathan Metzl.
Thanks. And, hopefully next time we talk, we'll have some more cheerful news. But I would just say, firing the experts in Tennessee has really set a pall for many of us. It's a worrisome beacon of what might be down the pike.
And again, I've been speaking with Jonathan Metzl, who's a professor of sociology and psychiatry at Vanderbilt University and the director of its Center for Medicine, Health and Society. He's the author of several books and a prominent expert on gun violence and mental illness. And his latest book is Dying of Whiteness, How the Politics of Racial Resentment is Killing America's Heartland. We're going to take a brief station break and back looking into House Democratic Whip James Clyburn's efforts to urge Senate Democrats to pass the For the People Act via a carve-out of the filibuster.